So welcome everybody to today's session, PBLA 5+ years in, reflecting on the practice, part 1. Okay, so we have part 1, just letting you know, part 2 is later in May, so we have part 1 today. So our presenter today is Beth Beardall, OCELT. I will be your host. My name is Helen. So I'll be running the slides and asking you all questions. Our moderator is David. David will be keeping an eye on the chat. If anyone decides to participate through the chat, if you type something, he'll read it out for you. Or if you decide to raise hand, he'll totally call on you and ask you to share. Alrighty, let's start. So, Beth is our presenter. Beth Beardall began teaching English in the LIC/ESL program in the fall of 2016 during the implementation of PBLA. As a naturally nurturing person with interpersonal and intrapersonal intelligence, she has been striving to use assessment for learning in the context of PBLA to create a more holistic approach to provide English instruction, practice, and assessment. In 2021, she completed a Master's of Adult Education through Yorkville University online, with a focus on building a learning community in the English for Literacy Learner classroom for her capstone. Nice. Okay. So today's agenda, we're going to start off with one introductory question, and then we'll move on to 3 conversation and discussion questions. And we'll finish off with a breakout room activity towards the last half hour or so everybody gets a chance to kind of just funnel into the breakout room, share ideas with each other, and just talk, have some good discussions. So how this will work is we'll ask Beth the question first. She'll provide some insight, and then afterwards we'll turn it over to the audience to share your opinions. Let's get started. Oh, and if at any point you have any questions about TESL Dialogue, or if you have any technical questions, you can drop in the chat and we'll address those as well. Okay, introductory question. So our question here is, Beth, how have you adapted and adjusted your teaching style and delivery since the inception of PBLA? And so I have a question, a follow-up question here is, has your style changed over the last 5+ years?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought those were going to be 2 separate questions, but that's okay. So I was thinking, the first question here, I was kind of thinking about people who have been teaching pre-PBLA, and I was kind of curious as to how they've adapted and adjusted in the last 5 years as they have gotten used to PBLA. So as mentioned in my bio, I just started teaching during the implementation of PBLA, but I took 10 years to get my TESL accreditation. I had to get my BA and then the certifications. And the thing that inspired me to actually to do this was I wanted to work in the LINK program with newcomers to Canada, because I had witnessed it 10 years prior, and just thought it was an amazing community building kind of place to work, where you're learning about other people and teaching them English and helping them adapt to Canada. So it kind of was interesting that then I got into it, and here I am in 2016, and everything's kind of changing into PBLA. So I'd love to hear anyone else's answer who has taught prior to PBLA, and you could dream of the good old days, or perhaps for you PBLA has improved your style. I don't know. Either way, we'd love to hear your insight. If anyone wants to share.
So anybody, if you don't want to speak out, you can just message in the chat and I'll read out your question for you. Otherwise, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you and you can address Beth's question.
Oh, okay. Shall I start?
Yes, awesome.
Okay, this is Claudie, and I've been known to be a PBLA warrior, and that meant anti-PBLA, not
Mhm.
for PBLA. And I have been teaching since 2000, taught ELT, SLT, ESL, LINC, and Visa. And my actual teaching, although I'm now much more experienced and I have a lot of skills and a lot of experience, but the actual things that I do in class have completely degraded. And there are many things that I used to do, for example, project-based learning. I
Yes.
can't do that now.
Mhm.
So I would say I'm more de-skilled than I am skilled by PBLA.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? This is meant to be a dialogue, so if you have something and you want to add on to what Claudine's saying, that's good too. We can.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people, especially during the beginning, the implementation felt as exactly the same. And, because I heard everybody and I also was disappointed, to be honest, because as I mentioned, I had a different image of what my teaching would be. So we'd love to hear from others.
So
I think we have a comment in the chat. Yeah, David, do you want to address that?
Rosa Maria just posted, she feels like she's assessing. She's teaching to assess, is the way she phrases it.
Yeah.
Susan, did you want to have me read it out, or do you want to comment about teachers leaving due to PBLA?
Oh, I am aware of people who are leaving. And at one point, when I was teaching on a contract, there was someone coming in as a supply teacher who was an experienced teacher, and they kind of begged her to come back to teach. And she's like, no way, because of PBLA. Thanks.
Is there a common thread in the people that you've spoken to have left as to what in particular they're reacting against? Like, is there some aspect that grates them more than others?
Well, the thing is, it's the time, the added time, but you're not being compensated for the added time. I just think it's too much administration, and it's too cookie cutter. It's really the feedback. I think teaching really is an art. I'm also a music teacher. Really teaching is an art, and the feeling I'm getting from a lot of people is just it's too much administrative, it's too much teaching to the test. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. Stella is mentioning that never before did I teach to the test, and now it is a big part of so many ESL instructors' reality. So I guess the bureaucracy of the thing and the sense that you're teaching to the assessment is prevalent.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from some of you that tell us what it was like before. How about let's remember what it was like before. I would love to hear that. Oh, Claudia Grain says I'm pro portfolio.
Collecting work samples. The myth is that no one did assessment before PBLA. Not true. The myth is that there was no organization before PLA. There was organization because it is used on a false conduct.
Okay, sorry, I'll have to come in there.
Sure.
PBLA is based on a false construct. And the false construct, construct is when you start an experiment, you decide that you're going to, it was based on, basically, why was PBLA brought in? It was an attempt to have a pan-Canadian harmonized, standardized a way of assessing learners across Canada. And so, first of all, we have a problem because across Canada, very different communities. Second, the material that was presented, it was supposed to be, AFL, Assessment for Learning, and even the great guru, Dylan, I can't even remember his name now, William, has said that in terms of AFL, Assessment for Learning, where you have hinged questions and you find out what the students know as you go along and you adjust your learning, that obviously this is not what the task assessments are. They are summative, and Dr. Fox has done studies on this and shown that that what we are doing is not assessment for learning. It's all fake.
Assessment
It-
of.
So
it's more assessment of learning.
well,
Yeah,
it is because it's some, you know, you go from
task-based.
you lurch from the module thing, which also came in because of Avenue, because it looks convenient, and I hope everybody understands the, you know, what the reference is. And no criticism for everybody who's doing their darndest to
Yes.
try to make it work.
Yeah.
The criticism is like, okay, it's not working. Oh, it must be the teachers. We need to train them more. No, the whole
Mhm.
system is based on false premises. And so it's cost a lot of money, and the funders want it want it so everybody does. You have to do it because it's funded. And I think this is something that's a big problem for our whole communities, our whole country, perhaps, is that we are being, what's the word, wagged by the tail, and not, you know,
yeah, the
Tails
dog.
wagging the dog. Yeah.
That's yeah. Well, I mean, I would love to hear I want to hear what was before.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody else have experience before?
We had resources.
Okay.
We had good resources, people who had worked, and all the publishing houses, they never published things unless they had totally researched. If there were, I'm thinking of things like the grab bags, I'm thinking of things like even on Target, the tests that were made before PBLA. And on Target was a really good resource, but it was limited, and it was going to be reviewed and revised. And unfortunately, the funding got yanked because all the funding, the tons, hundreds of millions apparently, went towards PBLA. So we did have all those things, maybe not everywhere in the country. Maybe not everywhere there were teachers, there people had been maybe come in from different, you know, when TESL Ontario became certified in that, a lot of stuff was, okay, we've got prior learning, you know, prior experience, and we will give you a certificate. And then when people get certificates, they go, well, I don't need to go to workshops. But we had lots of
Can I just get another voice in here? Stella has written, not that before was all wonderful. We've been through many bandwagons. However, teaching adults a new language was art and science, more nuanced and more authentic. And that's a nice, interesting word that we can maybe elaborate on. PBLA almost disabled many ESL instructors and haven't benefited many learners, and the money wasted. Oh my God. So, which is touching on the point that you're making. That's why I wanted to get it in there, that there was all of this money once the changeover came that, well, in Stella's opinion, has been wasted. Ida has suggested here, I feel like this is also with Avenue, but that's for another discussion. So Avenue is the bandwagon of the moment, perhaps, in Stella's Stella's view.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for your great responses. Thank you, Beth, and thank you, our audiences, for sharing. All right, I think we can move on to our next question now, which is going to be one of our conversation and discussion questions. All right, so Beth, I would like to ask you, what are some ways you make connections between learners' experience and the subject matter?
Yeah, okay. So this is supposed to be part of the PBLA theory, is that we're supposed to bring in prior learning, prior knowledge, prior experience of our of the learners, and then bring that in and take them to whatever themes or whatever kinds of English language needs they have, right? So I'm kind of just think about in this connection. So I did write a blog, which is what inspired this dialogue, and I kind of referenced the assumptions, Knoll's assumptions of adult learning, which I would say are ways we can make connections between the learner's prior experience and the subject matter. But one thing I would say is I like to find out what they're interested in. So of course we do that needs assessment. And then I try to find the materials I think there's a lot more materials coming out that are helping, like those module packages, which kind of gives you a whole package. And then from there, you can also incorporate other resources that you might have. So, you know, I might find a module package that would work well with that, or I've, you know, since then built my own packages of resources to teach to a specific theme, right? What else? I think really the answer also depends on your level, the levels you're teaching. So obviously, like at the beginning of a lesson, you want to elicit their knowledge of it through maybe showing images or videos or asking discussion questions. When I was teaching levels CLB 6, 7, 8, 9 sort of, and I would have like a quote, a famous quote. And I'd like to often start the lesson that way, where, you know, they can have a reflection and a discussion. And often they needed interpretation of the quote as well before they could really dig into it. But I don't know. I always try to bring in the communicative approach, you know, even though it's a little bit more difficult now, but I believe that's how we learn best, is through sharing ideas and learning to communicate and negotiate communication. I don't know what's everyone else think.
What are other people's reactions? Just before we move on, I don't mean to sidetrack this question, but just a few points. Claudia wanted to get in here before we move on. The independent study suggested that you not use PBLA for assessment because it's all subjective. And she says only if you have access to the old materials that she for example, used in the old days, do you realize how inadequate the H5P and the quizzes and modules are. So, so does anybody have ideas like Beth is talking about what they do in the classroom to make connections between learners and experiences that they've had?
Yeah, let's just give everyone a few moments to type if anybody is typing. Yep, like David said, feel free to respond to anything Beth said. If anything she said inspired you or made you think of something else, feel welcome to share. You're always welcome to either type in the chat your thoughts, or you can raise your hand and speak aloud if that's what you're comfortable with.
And so obviously this is something that you've done before PBLA, right? So it's not like this is a new thing to PBLA, but, you know, I just thought we could kind of reflect on this.
So maybe I can ask a question. So this is not really to offer my own, but maybe just a question. Do you find that the units that you teach year to year or session to session resemble each other a lot because, you know, the needs of students are, especially at lower levels, very similar? Or do you find a great difference when you question them about their past experiences, and does it take you in places that are vastly different from maybe what you taught at another session?
That's a good question. I'd love to hear others, but I would say for me, it changes slightly from one group to the other. Every class is different. You know, the chemistry, the makeup of the class is different. And yeah, even their experiences can be different, and the way the class gels together. So I often have to rework and adapt, even if I have a binder that I used, you know, a year or 2 years ago. I have to refresh and readapt it to work for this new group, for their level, their abilities, and their interests. Yeah.
Okay, so Lorinda has typed in the chat. It depends on the wave of students that we get. So yeah, Lorinda, do you want to expand on that idea a little bit of what you mean by wave of students?
Hi. So when we get students from, we seem to get waves. For example, when the war in Ukraine started, we got many students from Ukraine. Now we seem to be having many students from Afghanistan. And it depends from where we're getting our students from their needs are different and we change accordingly to their needs. So it depends. It really depends on where they're coming from.
Yeah. So Susan makes the good point here that we teach people first, not subjects.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
To teach with the people in front of you. Stella has, might be off the intended track, but the most recent learners' experience is that they can function quite well without actually learning the language. Cell phones with AI-supported translation software work, just shifted work for most of the daily needs of this, the first couple of years in Canada. PBLA assessments are forgotten as soon as the index sheet is filled out.
Yes. That is a huge concern is, you know, with the communicative approach, you want to, your instruction is intended for their competency, their ability to actually communicate, whereas often when we're just focused on trying to get assessments through, we're just teaching them rote and memory and performance, and that is definitely something that, you know, and this is one of the reasons that I thought this dialogue could be good, is because, like, what I want to know is how can we go beyond these problems? Like, you know, I know that the problems are bigger than us, but what can we do as instructors in our own classes, and what ideas can we bring to each other to help us get past those kinds of issues?
Claudia's made the
Yeah.
point that although she has a collection of materials and stuff, that they're presented in different ways in different sessions. We have continuous intake, yes. Waves is a good way to describe it.
Yeah.
How we have to adapt to the needs of classes in front of us. So
Okay.
again, that point that you interact with the student that you have. Any other thoughts?
You know, I just lost what Beth was asking about because you read, but thank you for reading it. But again, your question, what?
Okay, so let me see if I can rephrase or remember what I said, but like the reason I thought this dialogue could be worthwhile is because we know the problems, right? The communicative approach is about that we, you know, probably most of us began on and studied on how to teach language and you know, give language instruction is to help people learn to communicate. You know, it's a competence of ability, right? Whereas we often end up, as you all have been mentioning, just teaching to a test or teaching for a rote memory performance, and then as soon as it's done, they can't really take what that they might not even be able to repeat that, or if they could repeat that one test, they can't take that information and translate it to a different area of their life, right? So what I'm wondering is how can we as instructors, is there some way that we as instructors can get out of this and move beyond it? There's nobody coming to help us, okay? We have to figure out together. Can we have a discussion on how we can to reach out and beyond what we're in?
So you're suggesting that PBLA is a reality, and
Yeah.
we can complain about it or whatever, but at some point we just have to, what are we going to do with the reality that we're in? It's like arguing against gravity. You have to deal with the fact that it's a reality in our lives. What do we do with that reality? Okay.
And how do we, you know, how do we make it work, or how do we creatively make it work? Let me put it that way. How can we take the things that we know about teaching English in the context of PBLA and help the people that are coming to learn English thrive in English rather than just trying to get to the next level, so to speak.
So does anyone have, can anyone come to Beth's rescue here and offer some ideas of what we're going to do with the reality that's presented with us, and how do we meet the needs of our students that are in front of us with this system?
I don't want to talk again but I could, but if somebody else doesn't, then I'll have to. I will, but I'd really like to hear, because of course
we want as many voices as we can, for sure.
Right. And I've been teaching for a very, very long time. From the very beginning of PBLA, I immediately thought it was a good idea to collect. I had been doing it for TDSB. I'd been doing it for years to collect because students take their work home. How do you know what it looks like? You have a folder in the classroom, work samples. You can see evidence. It's not that we didn't have evidence. Some people didn't collect it. We did. So what do we do today? And the problem is that I think I wrote it, the administration is getting, all of our managers are getting tremendous pressure to prove that we're doing PBLA because their funding depends on it. And I feel for everybody, including IRCC and the people who put in all that effort to try to make it work. But at the same time, I do what I always did. I mean, I seriously do what I always did.
So what's that?
I teach from passion. I teach from love of what my students are and what their needs are. And then I adapt to, I have to collect something. So I've got an arrangement where I don't use the stupid binders. We once weighed them, and it's absurd to imagine that people would carry them home on the bus with 2 children and take them home proudly to their families and show them their progress as if. So I now have what I used to have before anyway, a small folder, and I do collect as we go along the required number of assessment tasks and skill using, all new jargon. But okay, I'm going to do it because I'm going to use some of the material I used before. I still use On Target, and I add some, some opinion questions or some inference questions, which they didn't have in those days. I agree, they're a little bit. They needed upgrading. So use the old material plus a little bit added. That's what I do. But basically, I still teach in the moment. I still teach with realia. I still teach, let's go on a field trip, because that's one of the most amazing experiences. And most teachers tell me, Claudia, I can't do that. A, we don't have money, and B, we don't have time. And I go, okay, I'm paying for the students. And I do, because otherwise they don't have the experience, and I can, so I do. So I think we have to work with what we've got. There is good material from before. Bring in anything that you find usable. I keep asking my colleagues, have you found anything on Avenue? I did, by the way, I'm not a resistor. Everybody thinks, oh, she's such a resistor. No, I'm the uber complier, because I know that I need to show that I've done it, but I adapt it. I adapt it to the way I do. And you can do it, and you can still have love of learning happening.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
thank you,
love that
Claudia.
answer.
Can I just get a few other ideas in here too? So Stella has said, I think we're doing just that, doing our best for our learners who want to learn with what we have. There's no one size fits all and never will be. I have illiterate people and engineers in the same class. Whoa, that would be, that's quite the bridge to over the gap to bridge. Susan has said here, at some point in the discussion, perhaps we can also touch on how implementation of PBLA has perhaps impacted on teacher administration relations. That's an interesting view of things, and you seem to touch on that, Claudia, with the demand on their part for showing evidence of PBLA.
Yeah.
Elena is said, I agree with Claudine. Claudia, the administration needs to be trained. They have no teaching experience, and they look only at numbers. And Rosa Maria, make it work. For me, it's about catering to each class's needs. Do the needs assessments teach what is needed for the lesson? I believe that learners do retain what is taught if they are actively participating and willing to learn. Good point. A lot of people switch off. Most of the grammar and speaking practice exercises are used over again, so that doesn't change, I guess she's saying. And this is real life. I haven't changed much in my teaching. I've just now added assessments. We are doing what we can, and most importantly, we do what our learners need.
Good.
So this is another point that keeps coming back. Okay, so we maybe have consensus on there. We need to do what's best for the students in front of us. Helen, do we want to maybe shift to the next screen?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's move on. Thank you so much, David. Thank you so much, everyone, for your insight. Next question we have here is first directed to Beth. How do you cultivate interest in the theme or topic?
Oh, okay. So I had those two questions kind of together, but so because they're very similar, how do we make connections between learners and experience and the subject matter, and how do you cultivate interest?
Well, the
Go ahead. Yes, please.
sorry.
Susan,
I'm
did you
so
have?
sorry. I was multitasking with my dog and I unmuted.
Okay. I thought you were going to answer.
No, I'm so sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. So I think this goes back to finding out first what their prior experiences are and what their needs are, what their current needs are, right? And so I think, as I mentioned before, I do the needs assessments with them before we decide what theme we're going to do. And then I go to get the materials after that, right? So I find it's really important to have that discussion. And also kind of gives them an idea of how the program works and that we're going to be using theme-based English learning and the task-based, right? The task-based learning. And then I think also, again, through bringing in, someone mentioned realia and bringing in materials, videos, dialogues, real life. Even if you have, like if you're doing vacations, showing some shots of your own vacation, that sort of thing, and then talking and having them share things that they have, photos they have if they have any, and that sort of thing. That's how I would cultivate interest in the theme or the topic. Okay, Stella, don't need to cultivate anything. Okay, fair enough.
On what, sorry, I'll do that, finish that off for you. Anything
Yes.
the learners are very clear on what they are interested in and keep moving here. And what they don't want. Mind you, for the last few years, I was assigned to FL and low CLB classes, so their interests were pretty predictable. Yeah, the lower the level, it seems to be, people need what they need and you can't get too far around it. Elena says she concurs with Rosa Maria and by a variety of activities addressing all skills. And Claudia is mentioning, I learned in Y,
Hi.
amazing TESL course at CCLCS,
Yeah.
that if learners are not interested in the topic, it is not relevant to them. So don't teach it. Skip on here. Jeannie, yes, lower levels tend to have the same needs and interests.
All righty, and I see Susan has
Yeah.
raised a hand. Feel free
Yes.
to.
It's intentional this time. I just wanted to mention diversity, the diversity of diversity, and that is someone else mentioned, and I've also had people of really vastly different educational backgrounds, people who had never been to school, couldn't hold a pencil, and people with degrees. But also we have to think about the diversity of economic advantage, because I've had people in my class who are refugees, maybe on social assistance, and there are people who are driving up in a Mercedes and they have just bundles of money. So I think something like a vacation also could be a little loaded, because maybe some people, for example, have never been able to afford a vacation. So I just
That
think
was just an example.
Oh,
That
I know,
was just using an example off the top of my head.
Sure. I just wanted to put it out there that we do have to be sensitive to whoever is in the room. But I also wanted to throw out, because I had done doctoral work in critical disability studies, and there is also a diversity of different abilities, and some of those are invisible, and some of them, for example, you might have neurodivergent people in your class. And also some of the teachers might be neurodivergent. So I think another point of research that could be very interesting would be looking at PBLA from a perspective of people who have a different outlook on learning, as to how their brains function. Just wanted to put that out there too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
even on, for example, the topic of vacation, sometimes the students do want to talk about vacation, and I'm not talking necessarily about flying somewhere and taking a European trip. I'm talking about going to Niagara Falls, or, going somewhere for the day. It doesn't have to be when we're talking about vacation, some elaborate, expensive thing. But I just wanted to say, like, I like to share what I have done or do with my students, and I have shared with them that, for example, I'm going to be traveling to BC to visit my daughter, and then I tell them I'm driving, and then show them my route, and they seem interested. So, and they also want to know about Canada, so just opens up more a community. I'm trying to open up a community spirit with my classes, as I'm sure you are too. So
I think everybody, if I may just jump in, I think everybody who's here tonight is really committed. And it's not just because, oh God, I have to do a PBLA thing and maybe I'll get something that I can use tomorrow. Won't that be wonderful? Because, that's unfortunately what workshops have become. And everybody, I can hear the passion. I can feel it coming through. And I think that everybody is using their brains and their hearts. And what you're doing is absolutely right. I think there is a value that I don't love the Canadian language benchmarks because they're not really valid and they're out of date. But I do think that that's the one thing that did come in since I started teaching that actually gave a kind of a shape, but it's unfortunately so unreliable in terms of, validity and reliability and consistency and certainly updatedness. But it did give us a little bit of a framework to think about. If I'm doing listening, I shouldn't only do one kind of listening. I should try to find a whole lot of listenings. And so that's where I changed a little bit, that I included a lot more of, say, if it's reproducing information from the radio, I got my students to take notes from the news as if you were going to do that in real life. They were shocked, but it really helped them. So I think we're making up as we go along. I mean, I'm sure everybody is very, very, you're in this because you love it. And that's and that love will keep you going and will lead you to know what your students need, and you're smart. So good for you. I think you're doing just the right thing. There is no one answer. We can share some of our stuff, which is great for you, John. Good on you for doing this. But I want to hear from everybody else. I almost want to say, Patricia, I know you. Patricia, what do you think?
So on that point, let me just get in a chat point here from Stella. So she's saying there's a very good point about ESL instructors diversity, which I think is an important point to be made. Okay.
Is anybody can I ask a question about
Sure.
PBLA? Two questions really. The first one is, has anybody noticed that PBLA is kind of in the background now, and that maybe CLB is being used as code instead, that it doesn't have the same urgency, and that maybe the funding, which ends in 2025, won't be renewed, maybe? That's one thing. And is anybody really having the same kind of pressure from administration? Because I think that all of us became so neurotic over this. You have to have it you have to have the tracking sheets, you have to have all the stuff done. And our learners don't know about the schedules. Our learners learn at their own pace and what they want to learn. And so is anybody having a lot of pressure to produce the evidence and a certain amount of artifacts per month and stuff like that? Maybe you can just answer in the chat. Anonymous, yes.
Well, while we're waiting for that, Shintu's put in the chat. She's agreeing with Susan. Made a really good point regarding diversity, and I have personally experienced being with all the different types of diverse learners that she mentioned. And Jenny has said, as the lead teacher for our program, no. In fact, I feel like we are back to normal post-pandemic. And Elena has said, luckily, no. So maybe you're sensing some kind of tidal shift.
Maybe.
Jenny and Elena seem to agree with you anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you remember it's not early days, it's early years of degradation, humiliation, intimidation. Do you want the other ins, IONs?
That's okay.
And people got sick. They actually got sick. There was one area where they had 8 teachers out on stress leave. Shocking.
Yeah, I think they really rolled. I think that whoever is they, I don't know who they is, but have realized that it was too rigid. And I think, yeah, they're rolling back. They're trying to reintroduce the idea of skill using practices rather than always what our students call tests, the task-based, the task assessments, right? And skill using is what instructors have always done, right? You use the skill using to see how they're doing in the skills, right? So it's interesting that I feel like you're right. You could be right.
Stella is saying here in the chat, my employer harasses, using quotes, higher CLB level instructors more, as nobody can manage to have speedy assessments in lower levels. I was one of the ones who were sick. It was abuse in hindsight.
Oh, Stella,
sorry.
Elena is posted here. It really depends on the admin. My admin has always been a bit laid back. However, we need some evidence to support the progression, of course.
Yeah, I really agree with Elena that it depends on your program managers or administrators. Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Jenny suggests the same thing. Luckily, I work for a wonderful smaller program. Administration and myself take a very strong supportive approach. Life happens and there's a learning curve, and I will always work alongside my teachers to help them achieve goals.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of support I think people just feel needs to be there. And if it's not there, then you do feel harassed, to use Stella's
and
points.
having worked with Jenny for a couple months, or maybe I concur that that's your program for sure.
Nice.
Sorry, I'm laughing because I supplied at a location, won't say which, and they had binder Friday or something like that. Binder Friday meant everybody came into the room with a binder, and they all fabricated stuff and put it in.
Oh no.
And you know, it was sort of like, guys, we have to do this, and so, you know, the binders look wonderful, but one of my learners said having a beautiful binder doesn't mean that you're a good learner. And the learners are so smart. They look at it and they go, why are we doing this? Why are we having inventory? Does anybody still do inventory lists, for goodness sake? You know, there's redundancy. And all the time.
I actually do. Actually, with I have CLB 1 and 2 and some literacy 1, 2. And every Tuesday we might do some sort of PBLA thing. Not every, but when I return the assessments, I have them fill out the information on the inventory. We have yellow inventory sheets and put it in the binder. I'm not worried about how organized it is in there as long as it's behind that yellow sheet. But and the reason is because it helps for this level for literacy, organization, and looking on a form, filling out a form. It actually is a practice of doing that sort of thing, finding where's the date and where do I put it. And so they
it's a real life
good. Yeah, it's a real life skill.
Well,
Yeah.
honestly, in
Yeah.
all courses I've ever done, I've never had to do that. But I want to go back to the person
Well,
who,
you haven't, but I'm talking about people that have not, like some of them have not had very much schooling, right? So it's a practice of learning how to do things like
I
that,
know I
right?
wanted to address that
Yeah.
because along with the divergency is this assumption that PBLA is going to help you be more organized. Never heard anything so insulting in my whole life. I have in front of me a student who, not now, but she worked in Nigeria at the airport, had a little kiosk, and she sold food and she made her living. How much more organized do you want
Of
somebody to
course.
be?
Yeah.
Now, do they
There's
have
different organizations for sure. Like I'm just talking about a classroom type or office kind of organization, right? And
So
so
can I just bring in here Ida's point? She's talking about a digital organization. So before we're talking about an actual physical binder, here's Ida's talking about e-portfolios because of Avenue. Who's going to train me? Why all this extra work without compensation? So again, it's almost going back to the early days when there's this reaction to how much work there is to be done off hours kind of thing.
and Jenny says above her, we have our learners complete as
Oh,
much
yeah.
as possible themselves.
Themselves.
Yeah.
The binder itself becomes a sample of their abilities. Yeah, it's a record of
Maybe that's what I'm saying. Jenny just said it better.
So and Nancy also is just put in the chat. Yes, deadlines for submitting needs assessments, summaries, tracking sheets, etc. I get pressure from students. I need my fours. When is the next task? Why are we doing a task today? I get feedback from students that employers are aware of CLBs and demand fours to get a job or promotions.
Oh.
Yeah, that could be a
Yeah.
real life consequence for. And Lorinda has put in the chat, our students are actually excited to track their progress through their inventory sheets, and it's easier to write a reflection when you have, when you have a reminder of what you have completed, true, when you can look at it and it's easier to reflect on what you've been doing.
Yes.
Does anyone remember the amazing joy of ESL blog?
It's still there. She just
Yeah, but Kelly's not doing it anymore.
Oh,
Yeah,
no. Oh, okay.
no, that really helped us through those
Oh
all
my gosh,
first
amazing.
years. And people posted anonymously about the torture. I mean, there was no other word for it. And then they also posted suggestions and things, but the waste of paper, the waste of time for something that could have been done so well and was a good idea at heart, but became this kind of behemoth of bureaucracy. And anyway, I just also said something about citizenship. I think here's the key, because the actual only use for the CLB's real use in the real world is for that application for citizenship. And people are yanked out of their jobs to come to our classes. I mean, they're very successful, very organized. I'm sure they keep ledgers, but they have to go through all our little jumps and hoops and binders and that in order to move a benchmark. And it's only so they can apply for citizenship, which makes us arbiters of who becomes a citizen or not. And I think that that's one of the most egregious things of PBLA, is that we are now in this position of having all this power over people's lives. I mean, if they waste a little bit of time and we waste some government taxpayer money, so what? But this really affects people's lives. So hopefully somebody is going to have a bonfire one day.
Sorry, thanks. I just Stella's got a positive story that she recites in the chat. Stella, would you like to tell it? Because I imagine there's some more details that might fill things out here rather than just me reading.
Well, sure.
Thank you.
I apologize for being such a chatterbox. But also we were talking about, waves of students and digital literacy and generating interest. There is just a little real life story. My new learner who cannot read or write in her first language and never saw a Chromebook before, fell in love with the Chromebook that was issued to her in class and is learning faster than many old-timers who's been sitting in those ASL classes sometimes for 3-4 years due to the neurodivergency or attendance or whatever it was. So there are so many joys, even though there is no joy of ASL blog anymore. There are still so many joys in our classroom lives.
Yes, I agree, but I don't think it's attributable at all to PBLA. But if you want to, and it does work in yours, good for you, you know.
Thanks for your story, Stella.
No, thank you.
Oh, sorry, continue. Oh,
Did you read Lorinda's comment up a little bit? I don't
the students
are
yeah,
actually excited.
cited. Yeah, we've read that one out, I think.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
We had Stella. Oh, Rosemaria. I agree with Lorinda. However, the learning reflections are challenging for many learners at various levels. Many have
Yeah.
never had to reflect on their learning. Sure, it's a thing that needs to be taught.
I think that's coming up if you're interested in coming back to part two.
In part two? Oh, nice. Okay, good.
I think
We'll
so.
look forward to that for sure. Ida's commenting, I find it interesting that they created this binder, all that money wasted, and now they want e-portfolios. So now what I do with the binders collecting dust in my classroom.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this was always going to be thus. So.
Well, on the blog,
is there time to do the breakout or?
I think so.
Okay.
I think we had one more. Sorry, I think
do we have time for one more
question?
Maybe.
Let's spend 5 minutes on this question and we can go ahead and do breakout rooms after that. So okay for everyone. All right, so I'll go ahead and ask Beth first. What instructional methods do you use to help each learner succeed personally and socially in or out of the classroom? Then it's a follow-up question. How do you incorporate these methods into your lessons?
Okay. So I think I made that question using instructional methods, and I don't think that's what I intended, because then I kind of thought later, well, instructional methods are more like total physical response, or using repetition and communicative approach. But so I'll answer it anyway the way I originally thought I would, is and it's already been a theme in our discussion, but just recognizing the wealth of knowledge that the people come to our classes with and their experience as adults, and trying to just incorporate as much as that into the discussions, and finding or I don't want to say giving opportunity, but taking advantage of those moments when students are teaching each other, right? And helping each other, rather than trying to always be the one telling everybody, trying always to be the instructor, right? So I really love a classroom where everyone's working together. Maybe somebody that's really good at something is helping or explaining a grammar point to somebody that just isn't quite getting it. That's sort of what I had in mind with that question, is just I like to create that community atmosphere. Just treating people like, adults, right? Because that's what they are, with experiences. Anyone else?
For sure. Thank you so much, Beth. And just if anyone else has any comments, feel free to drop them in the chat. And then right after, we'll be approaching our breakout rooms.
So if there's no other, oh, sorry, Ida has a comment in the chat. This was a great discussion, and I'm relieved that I'm not the only one. I apologize. I have to attend to oh, so she's left us. Stella, they are adults. They bring so much to the class.
Yeah.
And creating community is
I haven't
always
left you yet.
The first step. Oh, okay. Oh, at 8 o'clock. Well, yeah.
I haven't left you yet. I just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you
for this. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather, but I still have to attend another event. Have a great evening, everyone. Nice to meet you.
All right. Thank you, Ida.
Nice to meet you, Ida.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So time for the breakout rooms then, Helen?
Yes, for sure. Okay.
Okay.
So we have a breakout room activity, and this is our class.
So we have them made, and when you go into your group, could you first job is to pick somebody who will report back to us after you come back, and you're being given a question here now by Helen. But when you come back, have somebody who's going to be responsible for presenting back to the class what the discussion in your group was about, and you'll have about what would you say, Helen? 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
Yeah, 15 to 20 minutes, and then
Somewhere
we'll go to the main room and spend about 10 minutes sharing our thoughts.
Okay. Okay, so the question?
Alrighty, the question is, how do you encourage or empower learners to take responsibility for their English learning? Alrighty, take a moment and think about the question. It will also be sent, like broadcasted to your breakout room, so it's okay if you get there and you're like, what was the question again? Yeah. How do you encourage or empower learners to take responsibility for their English learning? All right, if everyone is ready, David is going to create and launch the breakout room.
Okay.
And it's going to be small groups, around 5 people per group. And I think we're going to have 4 groups in total.
Yeah, I think we'll have fewer groups than that, but
Okay. Welcome back, everyone.
thank you. Hope you had profitable discussions in there. We ended up only with 2 rooms, and that was room 2 and room 5. So we're going to ask the representative for room 2 maybe to share what you guys talked about in there, so we get some idea of what the discussion was like in another room. Someone from room 2 to
That would be Angela from our group.
Angela. Where's Angela? Okay, Angela.
No, that would be Cloudy.
Oh, you guys are fighting over. I thought you guys would have decided by now who's going to do the. Angela, tell us what went on in your room.
We did a lot of talking, not actually on the topic, I would say, but there was a fair discussion going on.
About PBLA or about
various things. PBLA was in there somewhere.
Yeah. So what were you talking about if you weren't talking about the question?
We're talking about students and some of our experiences with teaching, and PBLA got thrown in there a little bit, and so what do we do to have our students be more responsible for their learning? I just gave an example where I have them do research and presentations, and that seems to inspire them, and they kind of get on board. And so that, for me, that's successful and heartening. Cloudy had a wonderful one. She's helping her students get organized, so out of the plastic bags and into the binders, and so that was a wonderful thing. You're on mute, so you're still on mute.
Okay, not PBLA binders, regular binders.
No, regular binders.
Yes, because they come in, the filing, the plastic bag filing cabinet.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Okay. Any other standout observations or comments that were made in your group?
Yes, we had a mix because we had somebody who's just learning, and I'm wondering if this would be scaring the pants off this person, or like, wow, well, they seem like nice people there, so I think it's going to be okay. Chinya, it's going to be okay, right? You're going to be marvelous. You're just going to be wonderful.
So were you guys the old hands giving the rookie some advice about teaching? Is that what was going on? And if so, what advice were you giving?
Not really. What did you get from it, Chinya? Can you
just listening to your experiences in the classroom with students is very encouraging for me, just to hear what goes on. Like your different experiences and how you help students. I think even for me as a learner, as a practicum student, when I did do my practicum at Centennial College, I would say research, based on what Angela is saying, like research is very important to get students to research and then bring back what they researched to the classroom. So I definitely agree with your point of view.
Nice. Okay, so let's maybe get the view of the other group. So I guess that's so you guys were room 5, so that would be room 2 now that we're talking about. So was there anyone from room 2 who was nominated to be the spokesperson?
Yes, I was.
Ah, Stella.
I was.
And what happened, Stella?
Well, we also had a very productive discussion. We started with
Nice.
the question, empowering our students and inspiring them. But then we all agreed that I don't know who empowers who. We empower the student or student empower us. It's a street. We are, well, I don't know, a family or certainly a community. And we try to make them feel safe to take risks, to try to make mistakes and not be intimidated by or punished by anything. And they empower us to do better, to find ways to deal with this, what's the word? I don't want to say the word I want to say, with the challenges of the PBLA or PBLA administration, I would say, not PBLA concept, because yes, the students do want to keep track of their achievements, and yes, they do want to have some kind of organization, but plastic binders are not it. And then we started talking about the PBLA trying to do everything for everybody, which is impossible, and maybe a possibility of some modifications between the stage 1 and stage 2 numbers and requirements. And then it was mentioned that this number 8 that was given to teachers is more of a stick than a carrot, and is very subjective. And not really a cut in stone number. So things like that. And also about how COVID online learning jump-started our digital literacy, instructors and students both.
Yes.
And how much this now jives in with our new AI realities, and how useful it was for our students who, you know, they learned how to use Chromebook before they learned how to hold a pencil. I mentioned one of mine. She's exactly that. She can type her name, but she cannot write her name with a pencil.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know, Boo PBLA or yeah, PBLA. We do our best. Our students help us to do our best, and we do what we love, what we find success in, and we are empowered by our achievements together with the students. I think that sums it up.
Nice. I think that might be a good spot to leave it, back with the students, and everything that we've been able to agree on tonight, at least, has always been focused on the student and what they need. So thank you, Stella.